Welcome to Mind Research Rewired. We unveil scientific truths to transform confusion into clear thinking. Unlock a sharper, more effective you based on proven research. Subscribe now and elevate your life.
The average listener right now probably thinks, that they need a massive $1 million seed round to build an empire.
Oh, yeah, like a perfectly engineered rocket launch?
Exactly. But the actual reality is that some of the most resilient firms in the world are born from less than $5,000 and a pile of toxic waste, literally.
And that toxic waste part, by the way, that is not hyperbole. We are looking at actual field data today that proves that this whole perfectly engineered startup launch is just, well, it's largely a myth.
It is a myth, and it's a myth that keeps so many ambitious people totally grounded. You think you need to secure massive venture capital, hire top-tier talent, rent the sleekest office space before you can even, point to the sky.
Right, the traditional checklist.
Yeah, the checklist. But today, we are stripping all of that away. We are taking you, the founder listening right now, on a mission to completely rewire how you look at the resources around you.
It's a total mindset shift.
It really is. So we are pulling from this incredibly deep 2005 study by Ted Baker and Reedy Nelson. It's titled, Creating Something from Nothing, Resource Construction Through Entrepreneurial Bricolage.
Yeah, and this research is, it's fundamentally about a psychological pivot. It's the shift from waiting for perfect conditions to actively constructing value out of literally whatever happens to be lying around.
Right.
But to understand how radical this is, we first have to look at the trap that, most founders are stuck in, which is the objectivist model of business.
Oh, man, I see this constantly. It is the assumption that resources are just fixed and objective.
Yeah.
Like, money is just money, right? A software engineer is a software engineer, and a piece of land is just a piece of land.
Exactly. And if you view the world through that specific lens, lacking those high-quality inputs means you simply fail, or you have to radically downsize your ambitions.
You play the hand you're dealt.
Yeah. And if you have no good cards, you fold. But Baker and Nelson outline a constructivist view, which they call bricolage.
Bricolage.
Right. It essentially means making do by applying combinations of the resources you already have at hand to completely new problems. And the study traces this back to a brilliant insight from Edith Penrose in 1959.
Oh, her distinction between resources and services completely blew my mind.
It's the engine of this entire mindset. So Penrose argued that we need to separate a physical resource, like a piece of machinery or, even a human employee, from the services that resource can provide.
Okay, wait, unpack that a bit more for the listener.
So a resource is just a bundle of potential services. The value isn't the thing itself, right? It's the unique way a firm combines and uses the properties of that thing.
Okay, so let me see if I'm tracking this Penrose idea. It's like looking at a broken refrigerator, right?
Okay, go with that.
The traditional objectivist founder looks at it and sees a useless box that can't keep food cold anymore. They just see a failed resource.
A total write-off.
Exactly. But the Bricolage founder looks at it and sees a copper coil, a functioning compressor, and a heavy insulated steel door. They extract the services of those individual parts to build a completely different machine.
Right, like an air conditioning unit for a makeshift server room.
Yes, exactly. It's like traditional founders are like kids who refuse to play unless they have the exact Lego kit with the step-by-step instructions.
Yeah, you need the manual.
Right. But Bricolage founders just dump the random spare parts bin on the floor and they build a spaceship.
That is a perfect visualization. The objectivist sees a broken fridge, but the constructivist sees a parts depot. They don't accept the institutional definition of the object.
But wait, is bricolage just a fancy multi-syllable academic word for bootstrapping?
People get confused by this all the time, but no, it's more than that.
Because bootstrapping is just, extreme frugality. It's saving your pennies until you can afford to buy the brand new commercial-grade air conditioning unit.
Exactly. Bootstrapping is about surviving a lack of money. But bricolage is an active refusal to accept the constraints of your environment entirely.
Okay, so it's a completely different posture.
Totally different. The research shows it requires 3 simultaneous behaviors. First, making do, which means a heavy bias for action and testing the limits of what's acceptable.
Right.
Second, combining things for entirely new purposes, like your refrigerator compressor. And third, and this is key, using resources strictly at hand, the things that are cheap, free, or just completely ignored by your competitors.
Okay, this brings us from like abstract theory into the messy physical reality of building a business.
A fun part.
Yeah. The researchers categorize this behavior into 5 specific domains: physical inputs, labor, skills, customers, and the institutional environment.
We have to talk about how this plays out physically.
We do, because the story of Big's dig from the study is it's unbelievable.
Big's Dig is an absolute masterclass in manipulating the physical and environmental domains.
Set the stage for us.
So here's a founder who wanted to start a business but lacked the capital for, pristine commercial real estate. So what does he do? He acquires an abandoned, toxic coal tailing pond.
Literally a wasteland. Mine owners and regulators considered it a massive liability.
A nightmare.
He got it essentially for free because nobody else wanted to touch the environmental disaster.
Right. The objectivist sees a toxic liability that will bankrupt them in cleanup costs. Big saw a bundle of services.
So what did he actually do?
Well, he scavenged surplus, discarded mining equipment that he bought for pennies on the dollar, and he just began experimenting with land reclamation.
With zero formal background in it.
Zero. But he became so adept at moving earth and filtering the site that he actually won a high-profile environmental award.
Which is an incredible pivot on its own. But he doesn't stop there. He looks at this newly pristine filtered water lake he just created and realizes, wait, I have a brand new resource at hand.
He recombinates again.
Yes, he recombines it and starts a trout-raising aquaculture farm.
And because he had accumulated all this heavy equipment and learned how to move massive amounts of earth and carbon during the reclamation, he spun that off into a trucking and hauling company on the side.
From a toxic coal dump to a pristine trout farm and a trucking fleet, it's insane.
It really is. And the study is full of these cases. Grayson Hill Farms did something similar.
Oh, the methane guy.
Yes, the founder had a farm crisscrossed with these abandoned coal mines that were leaking toxic methane gas.
Which is usually like a total deal breaker for land valuation.
Right. Instead of treating it as a nuisance or a hazard, he drilled down, scavenged a used diesel engine, and converted the mine methane into electrical cogeneration.
He essentially built his own power plant out of a dangerous liability.
Exactly. He then used the heat and power to run hydroponic tomatoes, added tilapia tanks, and eventually he just sold the excess methane back to the natural gas companies.
Okay, I get how you can scavenge physical dirt, water, and machinery. It makes logical sense. But what happens when the roadblock is human capital?
That's a huge constraint for most founders.
Right, because you can't exactly go to a junkyard and scavenge a senior software engineer when your tech stack is failing.
No, you can't. And that is where the skills and labor domains come into play. It requires the exact same psychological shift.
Give us an example from the research.
Take the case of Jason Bond. He was a billing manager in this study, working for a fast-growing startup wireless telecom company.
Okay.
Their billing software was completely outmoded. I mean, clerks were manually adjusting bills by hand, which was just bleeding the company dry in labor costs and errors.
And I imagine the executive directive was the classic founder constraint, right? Like, hey, Jason, we have no money for new enterprise software. Figure it out for free.
That was exactly the directive. Now, Jason did not have a computer science degree, but he had self-taught amateur programming skills.
Okay, so he's pulling from his own internal discarded resources.
Yes. A core tenet of bricolage is relying on amateur or self-taught abilities rather than assuming you must hire credentialed experts.
Right.
So he took those amateur skills and combined them with a memory of a homegrown spreadsheet system he used at a previous job in an entirely different industry.
So he basically Frankensteined a custom billing system together out of an old spreadsheet concept in, like, amateur code.
He wrote rudimentary scripts to integrate the two systems, completely automating the manual work.
Wow.
He saved the company thousands of dollars in clerk salaries, which actually gave the firm the breathing room to handle complex pricing deals and scale their customer base. He extracted new services from his own overlooked amateur skills.
But wait, when you talk about writing rudimentary scripts or bypassing standard systems, my mind immediately goes to the regulatory side of things.
The institutional domain.
Yeah, I'm thinking of early Uber or Airbnb, right? launching in cities before they were legally permitted to operate as taxi companies or hotels. Is that the kind of boundary pushing we're talking about here?
It is exactly what we're talking about.
Because the study mentions Jim Roscoe, right? The electronics repairman who scavenged broken TV parts to make high-voltage testing tools for underground mine cables.
Yeah, Jim Roscoe is a fascinating case.
But he was ignoring safety codes, credentials, and intellectual property laws. Where is the line between having a MacGyver mindset and just acting recklessly and, like, unprofessionally?
Right.
Won't this get a startup founder in huge trouble?
It's a vital distinction, and it's a great question. Bricoleurs are not just reckless cowboys trying to break the law. What they're doing is actively testing institutional limitations.
Testing limitations.
Yes. They treat the regulatory and institutional environment as just another malleable resource rather than an iron cage.
So they're basically trying to figure out which rules are laws of physics and which rules are just, well, suggestions.
Precisely. They don't accept a rule just because it's written in an industry manual or because, that's how it's always been done.
They probe the boundaries.
They poke the bear a little bit. They do. In highly constrained startup environments, regulations are often inconsistently enforced, or, and this is key, they were written with giant, well-capitalized corporations in mind, not a scrappy firm just trying to survive until Friday.
So they ask, what is the actual penalty if we do this our way?
And often the penalty is non-existent, or it's a minor fine that is far cheaper than the massive cost of upfront compliance.
That makes a lot of sense.
They create space to operate in the shadows of institutionalized practice, bending the assumed rules until they are strong enough and capitalized enough to step into the light and pay for full compliance.
Okay, so this ability to hack your environment, duct tape your software, turn toxic waste into fish farms, bend industry regulations, it sounds like the ultimate entrepreneurial superpower.
It is a superpower.
But this leads to a massive contradiction. If this mindset is so incredibly effective, why don't all of these scrappy bricoleur founders turn into billion-dollar unicorns?
And this brings us to the plot twist of the entire research paper. It is a trap that catches almost everyone.
Okay, let's get into this.
The exact mindset that saves your company in the beginning will absolutely destroy your ability to scale.
I really want to dissect this because this is the moment where I think a lot of our listeners are going to have a painful realization about their own operations.
It's a tough pill to swallow. The researchers categorize founders into two camps: those who practice parallel bricolage and those who practice selective bricolage.
Let's start with parallel.
So parallel bricolage happens when a firm creates something from nothing across all 5 domains simultaneously. And this is the kicker. They do it continuously as their permanent business model.
Right.
You are always scavenging materials. You're constantly relying on favors for labor. You're using amateur skills for critical tasks. And you're always dodging regulations.
It sounds exhausting. It's an absolute addiction to the hustle culture.
It is an addiction. And it creates a fatal structural flaw through a mechanism called multiplex ties.
Multiplex ties. What does that actually look like on the ground?
In parallel bricolage, your network becomes incredibly enmeshed. Your friends become your early customers. Those customers help you pack boxes on the weekends so they become free labor. Because they gave you free labor, you give them a permanent special discount on the product.
Wait, let me work through the mechanics of that. If I'm a founder and my buddy gives me free server space in his garage in exchange for me doing his startup's accounting on the weekends.
A classic startup trade.
Right, but I can't suddenly demand enterprise level 99.9% uptime from him. If his server crashes, I can't sue him or fire him without ruining the friendship. I am completely trapped by the favor.
You hit the nail on the head. You cannot standardize quality control when every relationship is built on a messy mutual obligation.
That is so true.
You get so tied up in these personalized, hacky solutions that you cannot migrate to richer, more demanding markets.
Because enterprise clients won't accept my buddy's garage server went down.
Exactly. You can't scale your product because every customer is getting a special deal and every supplier is a buddy. Growth stalls entirely. The data is brutal on this, by the way. Not a single firm in the study that engaged in permanent parallel bricolage managed to grow.
Zero growth.
Zero.
So what is the antidote? How do you keep the superpower of making something from nothing without letting the multiplex ties completely strangle your company?
The firms that actually scale use selective bricolage.
Okay, break that down.
They use this MacGyver mindset temporarily. They deploy it surgically to solve a specific bottleneck or to survive a critical cash crunch. But the moment they are established, They ruthlessly abandon it.
They kill the hustle.
Yes, they trade the bricolage identity for standard, scalable routines.
The Dave Compton story from the research perfectly illustrates the emotional difficulty of this.
Oh, Compton Rentals.
Yeah, Dave buys this business, Compton Rentals. It's a trailer park, and by his own admission, the place is a mechanical and aesthetic disaster.
Just abandoned trailers, troublesome clientele, a chaotic mess.
A highly penurious, resource-starved environment, right?
Very much so.
So early on, he uses pure bricolage just to survive. He pieces the plumbing together with scavenged parts. He makes informal deals with tenants to do maintenance in exchange for rent.
Classic parallel bricolage at the start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as soon as his cash position stabilized, Dave executed a complete 180-degree turn.
He flipped the script.
He enacted strict formal contracts. He severed all those messy network ties and actually forced out the clientele that relied on informal favors.
And instead of scavenging for used parts, he started hiring professional service firms and buying brand new, standardized equipment.
Right. He deliberately enacted constraints on his own business. He actively invited the regulatory environment in by demanding strict compliance with codes.
Which feels like the exact opposite of the early startup hustle.
It does. And the founder listening to this needs to internalize this paradox. The scrappy duct tape culture that gets your brand off the ground is the exact culture you have to ruthlessly execute if you ever want to scale.
You have to know the precise moment to put the duct tape down.
And that is the most difficult psychological transition for any founder to make. You have built your entire ego and identity on being the scrappy underdog who can spin straw into gold.
It becomes who you are.
Yes. And to suddenly look at your team and say, no, we are going to pay full retail price for this enterprise software, and we are going to hire a credentialed, expensive HR director.
It feels like a deep betrayal of your roots.
It feels corporate.
Yeah.
It feels like you are losing your edge.
It feels like you're selling out.
Yeah.
But as the research clearly shows, if you refuse to standardize, your edge becomes a cage. You will stay small forever.
Man, that is a powerful metaphor. Your edge becomes a cage.
You have to use bricolage to blast out of the atmosphere, but you absolutely need standardized, boring routines to actually navigate the stars.
That distinction changes everything. Now, we are not just going to leave you with high-level theory.
No, we need action.
The goal of this deep dive is to elevate your thinking and hyper-focus your execution. We want you to apply this research before the day is over. So let's pivot to our Do It Today segment. We have 3 hyper-tactical steps for you to execute right now.
Action 1 is the resource audit. Look at your venture today. Identify just one worthless or overlooked resource at your disposal.
Okay, what kind of resource?
It could be a weird network connection you've ignored, an amateur skill you have that isn't on your resume, or a discarded legacy piece of software. Now brainstorm one novel combination to extract a new service from that resource to solve your biggest current bottleneck.
Look at the broken refrigerator and find the copper coil.
Exactly. Find the hidden service.
Action 2 is the limit test. Identify one industry standard, one regulatory assumption, or one best practice that you are currently accepting as an absolute roadblock.
And actively test that limit today.
Yes. Ask yourself, what is the actual worst-case scenario if I just bypass this assumed rule? Are you constraining yourself based on a tradition that doesn't actually carry a penalty? Push the boundary and see if it pushes back.
And action 3 is perhaps the most critical for those of you who have found some early traction. The bricolage sunset clause.
The sunset clause.
If you are currently duct taping a solution together, like fulfilling orders manually out of your garage, or relying on a buddy's free server space, you need to write down a specific metric right now.
Say, hitting $20,000 in monthly recurring revenue or reaching your 500th active user.
Pick the exact number and commit to abandoning the hack and investing in standard, scalable routines the absolute moment you hit that metric. Write it in stone.
This is how you avoid the parallel bricolage trap.
You must sunset the hustle before it suffocates your scale.
Sunset the hustle before it suffocates your scale. I want that printed on a billboard. Listen, we're coming to the close of this deep dive, but before we wrap, we need you to look in the mirror. We have 2 heavy-hitting self-reflection questions for you to take away from this conversation.
Question 1. Where in your venture are you currently playing the victim to resource scarcity instead of playing the bricoler?
Where are you complaining about the hand you were dealt instead of recombining the cards to extract new services?
And question 2. Are you currently trapped in parallel bricolage? Are you addicted to the hustle, the hacks, and the messy favors when you actually need to start standardizing for scale?
Be brutally honest with yourself about where your current bottlenecks are actually coming from.
We want to hear your answers. Drop your epiphanies, your afterthoughts, your sunset clause metrics in the comments section below.
You are the architect of your reality. Stop waiting for the pristine rocket launch, dump out the spare parts bin, and build with what you have.
And if this deep dive shifted your mindset today, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you the absolute best research to build your empires.
And before we leave you, consider this final thought to mull over. We've talked a lot today about extracting value from discarded physical resources and overlooked skills. But what is the most valuable discarded resource inside your own mind?
That's a deep question.
Think about the failed projects you're ashamed of, the terrible ideas you scrapped, or the business models that didn't work out. What if those aren't failures at all?
Just bundles of services.
Exactly. What if those discarded ideas are just the raw, uncombined spare parts for your next empire? Keep building, keep testing limits, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.